Hello and welcome to Galactic Goddess Podcast. I'm your host, Radha Nelia, and today we have a very special guest, Miss Sarah Paash, our in-house evolutionary astrologer. We love her. She's always bringing us our energy forecast, and we are jumping into February because this is going to be an interesting month, right, Sarah?
Yeah, thank you. So happy to be here. So great to see you. I feel like it's been way too long, even though it's only been 1 month. And yes, I'm excited that we're doing this, and it's perfect timing because right now, today, at this moment, we're having the exact new moon, the Aquarius New Moon at 15 degrees Aquarius. So we're officially beginning the new cycle, and what a great time to do this podcast, to give this medicine out.
That's right. So new moons are about affirmations and sort of planting the seed of what you're creating. So today's perfect because we're going to put this out today, and it's a new moon, so people can sort of tap into the energy and start to think about what they want to create for this month and maybe even this year and beyond, you know?
Yeah, and I think January was so chaotic because it was the first of the year, so that's always its own kind of like hustle energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also had eclipse season right off the bat. So we're finally now coming out of eclipse season and having that energy settle. So this new moon, this new lunar cycle is going to really be more grounded, I feel. We're going to have more of direction of really seeing clearly as everything begins to settle. It's like, okay, things are falling into place, and now we get to show up. And like you said, yes, new moon is the time to plant the seeds of the intentions, to get really clear on where we're going and where we intend to go and what we intend to grow. Specifically, February, my forecast is all about alignment. Everything is about getting into alignment and getting really clear on your values and kind of the guiding light to whatever work it is that you're doing. So this month is full of so much potential. And it's important that we don't let our ego sidestep in the way and start to take us somewhere off of our true alignment and our true path. So such a good time. I know I've literally been using these few days to reevaluate, review, and rewrite and really refine my core values. Like back to the basics, the very beginning, make sure that you're super clear in your intention and like the higher intention, if that makes sense.
So for somebody that might be just starting with the new moon intentions and things like that, you know, would you explain where to start and, you know, maybe where they would start? Like, okay, maybe in an area of work or relationship or just values. What would you suggest? What's your process?
Well, for this month specifically, I'm doing values because I think the core values are used for every single area of life if you use them for that. So that's why right now we have so much activity going on. We all have a lot of growth happening. A lot of new opportunities are coming in. For some people, I think for a lot of people, it has to do with work, has to do with creative projects. It has to do with really moving forward and taking action on all the things that we've been doing up until now. And so making sure that we're showing up with balance and integrity is so vital for February because it's happening fast. So something to keep you anchored. That's where I say this new moon, the intentions, I'm doing my core values because it's like everything's happening so fast. My job is not to make sure it happens. It's to make sure that I show up in my highest self and in alignment and present for, you know, everything that's kind of happening. So I would definitely tell people that whatever new ventures they're starting, to make sure that they're really clear on what are the roots that they want to make sure that they're tethered to something of really deep value, so that we are also available to say no if there's an opportunity that seems surface level. Yes, but it might get in the way of the deeper work or the longer term, you know, projects that we're doing. So yeah, and so we need to have that backbone. We need to have the backbone this month is so vital because the more simple and clear we can be, the more we can go with the flow, which is beautiful. It's a lot of action, a lot of good stuff.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Because yeah, it already seemed like there was a lot of momentum in January. There was like a lot of momentum. It felt like a
Yeah.
race. It was like go, like the thing goes off, and you're like, and off we go.
Mm.
Like there was not like a little break. It just felt like it was go time.
Totally. And that totally resonates to an eclipse season, to the eclipse cycle of just like everything's uprooted and like, and we're like, oh, okay, here we are. And now February, it's kind of like we're pretty clear on the things that we're working on and what we're committed to. So now it's like we have to make sure we keep showing up to those things, and we're invested in showing up for the quality. One thing that's important about this moon is, and this month, Venus, actually the ruler of all things that we want to create and attract to us and our worth. So our assets, not just for ourselves, but money, anything energy that has to do with receiving and worth. She just entered into Capricorn yesterday. So very new entry into Capricorn, joining the big players of Saturn and Pluto and the South Node, where the eclipse was at last month, the last new moon. So now Venus is here to kind of say, okay, like, what were your intentions in the beginning of the month, the first partial solar eclipse on January 5th? What new things were kind of opening? And how are you going to show up and really give them the attention they deserve right now? So that Venusian sense of loving and devoting yourself to the work, because Capricorn is about the work, it's about showing up for the plans that we have in place for, the steps we have to take. So really doing that in a way that it has that kind of graciousness to it, and that sense of like really valuing what it is that we're doing.
Loving what you're doing. So this month we don't have any eclipses or anything like that. I don't think there's no retrogrades going on. So what is going on? What other astrological sort of like magic is going on in the sky?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot going on this month overall. There's a lot of sextiles. So that's an aspect. There's one of the good or soft aspects might be termed, just because the energy is more fluid, it's more open, so it's flowing easily. Which also means that because that energy is more available, if we aren't channeling it mindfully, it can just be like released in really unhelpful ways. So a lot of sextile energy, a lot of this, the way I was kind of telling you, it's like a synergy type of energy. So the planets in contact with one another. It's like when you're in a conversation and one idea just lights up the other person, and it's back and forth, and it's like this, like, yes. And then all of a sudden you've created something with somebody else that you could have done on your own. So collaborations are a big part of this month, which doesn't surprise anyone, because it's like Valentine's Day and it's all about connections.
And it's two.
So really, yeah, and it's two. It's two. So yeah, a lot of fast energy, which is why my guides have been saying it's so vital that we're really tethered to the deeper value and the intention behind the work. I'm also seeing with the Aquarius New Moon today, and then also there's the Chinese Lunar New Year happening tomorrow. So we're having like
you're the pig,
a lot of new. Yep, you're the pig, and the pig is actually the 12th sign of the Chinese zodiac, and so it's the last one. It's the last one to win the race, so to speak. And the pig's all about like deepening our connection to pleasure, right? It's like it took its time. It like enjoyed eating along the way. It didn't care about being first. It was just like this is great. I'm gonna have fun. So it's all about abundance and wealth and prosperity, but it's not by being first. It's by enjoying the journey. So if you aren't connected to the value of the work that you're doing, and it's being ego driven to like be first, I think that's where this month is going to kind of call us out for the benefit of bringing us back into alignment,
Absolutely. We always get thrown back into alignment, whether we like it or not. But it's always for our highest and best good. That's a great thing, is like resets, each month is a new reset. Each new moon is a reset. Each new year, whether it be Chinese or traditional. And it's snowing outside right now. How cool is that? Just started snowing as you said that. So it's like the ending of a cycle, the beginning.
Yes.
Snow is like a reset too.
Totally. Totally. And I think, and the energy is going to be shifting. Most of the sextiles in the beginning of the month are between fire and air signs.
Mm-hmm.
So between the signs that are in Aquarius, the planets that are in Aquarius, and then we have Jupiter and Sagittarius and Mars in Aries. So between the three of those signs, there's a lot of fire and air activations. That's a lot of taking action, a lot of like taking risk, taking action, and stimulation, and then also and creation. And then the air sign is all about communication and collaboration, and Aquarius is all about water bearers. So it's like the people that we reach out to and connect with, like who's going to be receiving our work and who's going to be benefiting from it. So we're like really like that's really alive in the beginning of the month. And then as the sun enters Pisces and Mars enters Taurus at the end of the month, we're going to have more of the earth and water energy coming in. So again, it's going to be like very active in the beginning, a lot of mental stimulation, and creative stimulation. And then toward the end of the month, it becomes more connected and grounded and fluid. We start to slow down to prepare ourselves for March, for Pisces season, for the rain, so to speak. Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah.
So this month, what do we have? I guess I could ask, like, what do we have? What planets or energy do we have working for us? And maybe what energy should we be more conscious of? Like, I'm sure, each month has its yin and yang energy.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love how you said it that way. Yeah, I'm looking at all of my notes right now. Mercury's in Aquarius right now before moving into Pisces. So there's a very active, like I said, very active mental stimulation, and our minds are really like open right now. We're able to see things from a lot of perspectives. We can be really resourceful and innovative. That's very, that Uranian kind of energy of forward thinking, very able to see the vision of where we're going. And it's also just more mental activity. So I think that to the other side of that same coin is that if we don't have a mindfulness practice in order to kind of make sure that our mind's not getting ahead of ourselves, which is very potentially possible right now. Mercury is moving pretty fast. It's now ahead of the sun. So it's ahead of like our life force. It's ahead of the sun is the self. Mercury is the mind. So just kind of like making sure you're doing something to reel your mind back in a little bit and to make sure that you're staying grounded. I know that, that trickster energy comes into play. When Mercury will be entering shadow phase. We won't have retrograde, but Mercury's stationing retrograde in March. And so at the end of the month in February, it'll start to be in its shadow phase. March or February 19th. Yeah. So February 19th is actually when Mercury enters shadow phase. And so we'll get to see kind of like the themes that might be coming up for that next retrograde cycle. So again, like we have all this clarity and mental energy and just physical energy available to us right now, this creative energy. So I would say that now is a time to be taking action. Now is a time to be taking risks. Yes.
Utilize this energy, this time period to sort of just really get stuff done and out of your mind and onto paper or projects or whatever you're pursuing probably before Mercury retrograde. So we're going to have a Mercury retrograde in March.
Yeah. So before we'll make sure we talk a lot about that in our month of March forecast, but it's definitely important right now. Like if there's things on your list of projects that you're trying to wrap up or get started or whatever it is, like don't put that off. Now is the time to really put in to get those started. Yeah. Yes. And to know that, when we start to take action on new things and we start to we've now expanded and we're now a lot of people I know are doing really incredible things in this new expanded state. They're like work projects and they're really excited about it. Just being mindful that, this is when the doubt comes up. This is when the fear shows up. It's like when we're moving past the edge of our previous growth, that's when it shows up. So letting it come up, but not letting it get in the way, because any kind of stagnant energy right now could just be could just be released like in unhelpful ego ways, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always coming back to mindfulness. And I mean, that's why meditation practice is really good to have. Maybe even 15 minutes a day kind of helps. So.
Yeah. And then I'd love to hear your take on this too. I know Mars has also been a really strong energy for a lot of January because it's been in Aries and its home sign. So it's had more of its just natural power and gusto. And Mars we associate with the divine masculine, or the energy of going after what it is that we want. So it's like that self-assertion, it's that desire, whatever we desire, and our willpower and our passion to really like go get what it is we want. That's been really strong. And so we have been able to make a lot of strides. And then we've also had to work with whatever gets in the way. This last weekend, we had a square with Mars and Pluto. So there was like this really intense healing with the things that put us into overdrive, that put us into working way too hard or burning ourselves out. The stories that are like, tell us that it has to be hard or it has to be, you know, I don't know, anything like that. I don't know if there's anything that you've been seeing coming up specifically around a lot of those deeper wounds. The competition, like the unhealthy competition, the unhealthy desire to be first or whatever it is, that's driven by those like unacknowledged kind of sources of shame or misunderstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have noticed patterns of clearing away old shame patterns in like just the energy, the atmosphere, having conversations with people, having aha moments. And I also think there's been a lot of divine masculine upgrades, healing, and clearing sort of in the collective consciousness too. Because you know, that is part of the masculine that's been taught in our society is like, be first, be a winner, don't be a loser. Like, you got to beat everybody, beat your competitor. The Super Bowl is a perfect example of that. That's like, who's number one, and there can only be number one, and the rest are losers, you know. And as we're moving forward on so many other levels, a lot of us are really going, well, that's not really the way it goes. When one of us wins, we're all winning. And that whole paradigm of like win or lose, or the duality of I guess that is a very like toxic masculine thing I think it's starting to soften a bit. I feel like the masculine heart is starting to soften a bit as a lot of old stuff is crumbling, and I think it could trigger a lot of dark night of the souls for people. So that's something to think about too, or be aware of how, you know, all the energy, the dark night of soul is not necessarily a bad thing. It really can help us in healing. Like every time I've had a dark night of the soul, I was like, this is it, you know. But when I come out of it, I'm like, whoa, I feel like a brand new person. I'm not even the same person. Like, it just pulls so many layers off of me going through that process. And it's not something that I fear anymore, you know. I think that it's not always comfortable. It can be very uncomfortable, but we are unwinding so much. So anytime there is that discomfort from the growth, it's not necessarily a bad thing, you know.
Yeah. And I think I'm getting the image too of, as you're saying, like, it's like leaning in to whatever's coming up and kind of having reapplying the strength of the warrior, like the strength of Mars and Pluto, to really face the shadows or the fears that are coming up, that want to push us ahead or like drag us ahead, you know. And it's like instead just like making a commitment to not need to do something that would compromise your values, again, your integrity, and the relationships that you've worked hard to get to this place, including the relationship with yourself. Like, we've done so much healing work, so just making sure that we're not overriding ourselves and our need for rest and for a pause in the midst of so much action happening and coming up. And if you remember back in May of last year, in 2018, when Uranus first entered Taurus, And when it first entered, it made that square to Mars. And we all had this like crazy mid-May transformation, like a complete awakening. That was this dynamic that kind of played out with Mars retrograde and Uranus retrograde throughout 2018. There was that square that happened multiple times. And this month on February 12th, Mars is making an exact conjunction to Uranus for the first time since all of that action's kind of been like going down between the two of them. And the conjunction is the same in astrology as the new moon, in terms of like it's a beginning, it's a coming together and like a reset. So as Uranus is like the great awakener and the revolution and the like the waking up, you know, it's like that lightning wake up. I think it's going to be a really major reset for the way that we take action and the way that we so the more we heal these things now, the more space is going to be opened up for us to really step into that reset of like, what would the new world paradigm of work look like? You know, like if we could look at the future, if we could look towards awakening in this, you know, new reality that's actually our reality and that Uranian sense, what would Mars look like? How would the dance go as far as like the steps we take and then the way that we wait and kind of like allow things to happen naturally?
That's, you know, beautiful. That's really beautiful. That seems like such a new moon energy, thinking about what we're creating, how we can create it differently too, so that it works for us. Like, you know, sometimes we need a test run on something and then we need to sort of figure it out and have a few bumps and then realize, okay, this is how I can do it better. You know,
yes.
My brother always says, Rado, never be afraid to fail forward. Like keep going forward, like fall as many times as you need to, because you're always going to get back up. And it's just the ego that says like, oh, once I fall, I'm too embarrassed to get back up and go again. But it's okay to fail forward or to fall forward or to stumble and to learn and then to reconfigure how we're doing things in a way that's more supportive for us and everyone else.
Yeah. And I think, I think that's a really good approach to have in general for February, is to assume everything is really happening for our benefit, not just for like the outcome of making what it is that we want to be making and creating, but for the benefit of keeping us in alignment, you know, with the intentions that we're setting. And so how can we use the challenge as way versus saying the challenge is in the way?
Yeah.
It's like, I think that's going to be a big thing, is just, I think January was definitely about stepping up and showing up, you know, like really stepping into this new growth that we've had, and a lot of clearing that has to happen. There's a lot of beginning and ending there, but now I think it's like February's medicine is,
I just fell over. That's so funny.
The medicine is like way more about maturity, you know?
And falling forward.
And falling forward.
I mean, that's so funny. I've been trying to find the right place to put this computer, and it's just like I had to prop it on a pillow over here, but it just fell forward twice. Living my example right here with all of you.
I love it. I love that intention too, of living by example, as like as something for people to take away from this whole thing too. It's definitely February's like take the lead and lead by example, not take the lead in order to be first.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I was having a conversation with my brother last night, and we were talking about reinventing. Like, he's like, you've been like 5 people in your life already. And I was like, and I'll probably be 5 more. Like, you know, because that's just, you know, when you keep evolving, keep changing, it's not like you can't commit to just being one way for the rest of my life. Like, I am going to shift and change, and I give myself permission to do that. You know, each phase has a different energy or essence, you know.
That's beautiful. And so ironically, not ironic, but perfect, because today I was like reading my old notebooks from a couple of years ago, and I had this wave of like almost sorrow or sadness, or like guilt, because I was seeing so clearly how I've changed. And my mind was almost telling me, interpreting that as a bad thing, you know, because I'm not the exact same that I was when I, you know, was there. And so, yeah, that I worked through that exact thing today, and like, and finding space, because the truth is that we are all just a constant work in progress. Like, there is nowhere for us to finally arrive.
Yes.
There is nothing for us to become, and like, that's it. Like, that's,
yeah.
You know, and when we do that to ourselves, the way that just constricts us
in
our
little box.
Yes.
No.
So Mars conjunct Uranus mid-February, breaking out of any box that you might be putting yourself in.
Ooh, I love that. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the people around me.
No, yeah. I mean, I think it's like you can't grow and change, and all of these things are growing and changing with you, and hold on for dear life to like who you used to be or how things used to look or whatever. Yeah. It's like that is a way to just stop the flow. Mm-hmm. Which reminds me, this is so when I talked about the sextile energy and like the back and forth kind of synergy, it's important that I mention that the guides this month really want to make sure that people are aware of the synergy and the balance of giving and taking, or giving and receiving. I'm trying to say receiving instead of taking, but just how we're participating with that flow, and where are we making sure that we're just keeping that flow going, that we're not stopping it by withholding, and that we're not stopping it by protecting ourselves or trying to like do it all on our own, you know, not receiving support when we need it. That's a big part of February as well.
That's so important. I love how that's coming forward, especially for, you know, Valentine's Day and love and relationships. Like, giving and receiving is so important, and I think a lot of feminines are really learning to receive, you know, because we've been taught to sort of be programmed on giving. And it's nice, and I think it's nice that to bring that forward. So I don't know, I keep seeing the pattern of rebalancing masculine and feminine, whether it's inside of us, you know, individually. Like, we're always balancing our own inner masculine and feminine, and that always plays out in the world too.
Yes, I love that. I was also thinking of, when we were talking about this, thinking of Venus in Capricorn, and like how she's going to meet up with Saturn, the taskmaster, and Pluto, like the underworld and the power dynamics, and the South Node, this karmic place of like big release and letting go. And it's kind of like loving the whole process, like loving and being really committed to show up, because true intimacy is sometimes, you know, being committed and showing up when it's not easy. And it's not always just like everything is great and roses and butterflies.
It's the two people that stick it out. I mean, it's about commitment, and it's about, the ability to stick with something, you know, long enough. Some people are more prone to jumping around, and other people are more committed to working things out for the long term. So there are such benefits. My dad just had his like 30th or something marriage anniversary, and I was like, was it worth it, Dad? He was like, it really is, because the amount that you get to grow with somebody is beyond what you could ever do on your own. And then getting to know them through the whole process, like you can fall in and out of love with them a million times, but you love this person so unconditionally. And there's something beautiful, I thought, about that ability to really stick something through the whole process, you know? There's something beautiful.
I love that. And I totally think that message is so perfect and aligned for where we are right now in our process. And, you know, we're only the second month of the year, so like not getting ahead of ourselves and trying to, again, like, it's not about getting there first. This is the year of the pig. This is the year of, like, really, like, it's like Empress energy, in the sense of we create our joy and our pleasure, and we make the most out of where we are in the moment, while moving towards where it is that we're going. We're not just getting somewhere and missing out on all of this. Like, the pig is like taking its time. It's like there is such a spiritual medicine to that, to being like, what is the rush? Like, did nobody see the snack on lap 3? Like, what?
I mean, no, that's so beautiful. I like pigs. I think they're quite cute. I'm obsessed with the mini pigs. I was like, I want one.
Yeah. Remember when that was a thing and everyone was like getting pet pigs?
But then they grew really big. Like they were not minis. They never end up being minis. They look so tiny and cute, and then they grow really big. But have fun along the way, and they do have a lot of fun because I've been watching a lot of pig videos. Because I think they're so cute, and they do have a lot of fun. They're very playful, and they're just wonderful creatures. So
yeah, and also like a pig and a boar, you know, like those are both like the same animal essentially, and there's two sides. Like the boar is also kind of this self-assertion and this like you don't let something get in your way. Like you said, like you are committed to it in the long run, you see it through. So February is like, see the things through that you know are the things that are growing you, that you know are the things that are worth being committed to, that are in alignment to your values, and don't waste your time on seeing things through that are not. And I think that that's really clear right now. We're like, we should be clear at this point as like what's not coming and what's going, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like invest in the investments that you feel are value. You know, really go for that. Yeah, I heard that too. Like that's really important about that you get more clarity on knowing what was showing up in your life and what really wasn't there. Maybe you had illusions around it, and just letting go of what was illusionary or toxic, overload. And really focus on what's really feeding your soul, but also that you can co-create with in some energetic way, because we're always co-creating, whether it's a romantic relationship, a business. Everything in life is a co-creation. It's our energies coming together, and when we choose not to have them come together, that's when things end, or we realize, oh, they're not really coming together, and I don't see any movement or improvement. So bye.
Right. Like if there's not actually growth happening and it's just conflict, like what are we fighting for? Are we just fighting against something and ourselves? Yeah, totally. And then coming back to the astrology, towards the end of the month, when we get the full moon, the Virgo full moon, on the same day of the Virgo full moon, which is at 0 degrees Virgo. So this is closing out the 6-month cycle that was back in September for the Virgo new moon. We have this Virgo full moon, and Chiron is officially entering Aries, where it will not return to Pisces for another 50 years. So that's
the wounded healers leaving me.
I know. We get to read, and like Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. You know, it's the first sign, and so this archetype is really, there's like a whole new cycle of humanity and healing beginning and ending. So that's huge. It's beautiful, and it's beautiful that it's like simultaneously happening the day that the sun's entering Pisces. You know, like the sun enters, Chiron leaves, and it's like we have this new life we get to tend to. And that doesn't mean that there's no more healing to do. That doesn't mean that Chiron dropped off the face of the planetary. You know, the wounds don't just like evaporate.
No.
We've learned a lot of things, and we've closed a lot of cycles and a lot of patterns. And so it's like enjoying that work. Hopefully it paid off, you know?
Oh my gosh, I can so relate. Yeah, because I'm a triple Pisces, so the Chiron in Pisces has been working me overtime. I was like, no wonder why I got so much training and healing. Healing has been such a big theme of my life for like a decade. Like the healing theme has been so big, and I'm like, okay, I want to have some fun, and like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the whole world is kind of like, if you weren't consciously tapped into the fact that you've been doing healing work, you were.
I mean, it's never going to end, but I mean, I know we are, anytime we get triggered, it's just triggering us to heal, but I don't think it has to be at the intensity. I feel like I've been like doing a marathon for like a decade. Like, okay, let's do this obstacle course. Now this one, let's keep going. It's like never ending. So I'm excited about this.
I love that. And it's totally like giving yourself credit for owning the lessons you've learned and the healing you've done. And like, yeah, it is, we are really just beginning this new chapter this month. And so don't drag anything around. Like even, you know, you have a choice when the thought comes up, when the fears show up, when the doubt comes up. 2018 was like the boot camp for learning what your patterns were. And so apply the medicine of the wisdom of the experience you've lived to see what's what, you know, and like what's real and what matters and how to stay connected to what truly matters.
So
Virgo is all about, you know, it's all about duty and service and like getting our hands dirty. Like Pisces is the one that's connected to all that is, you know, it's like very ethereal in that sense of like, it's up here, and Virgo is very grounded and like, all right, how am I going to take that and put it into action and show up and be in service of the things that I believe in, and make something with that, you know? So this is definitely the end of the month is like, if you were in alignment, if you were connected to this higher will and to even the goodwill that you talked about, like the not being in competition, but just being connected to like everybody wins, you know, and like being really in trust that it's not about getting ahead, but there's more than enough going around for everybody.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. And then I think that will pay off. Like, I think that there will be like a manifestation of the work that will just like naturally come as the reward, not because you made it happen, not because you were guaranteed that reward, but it's going to come in maybe an unexpected way. And so being open to being surprised in that and not attached, like taking action without being attached to the outcome, the praise or the blame, but doing it because it's like, this is what's right with my heart and I'm going to feel good about this no matter what the outcome is. And then trusting that just brings a good outcome anyways.
That's so
you know?
That's so important. That's such a healthy thing. Who said that? My mom told me that, like, no matter what you do, like, don't do it like for the quote unquote result. Like, do it because you love to do it. Whatever you do it for the joy of it, because it brings you great joy. Even if you're washing dishes, like, find the joy in anything you do. And as far as results, like, don't depend on the praise of others, just as you don't depend on others like who project or criticize you. Like, either way, right, it doesn't matter. You're doing what you need to do. I mean, yes, you know, sometimes some things feel better than others, but we can't control anyone, and we don't want to. We want to just keep creating for the pure joy of creating.
I love that. Like, mic drop. That is there's so much wisdom in that. And February is all about transcending the systems of gain and praise and loss and blame, like transcending those dualities, because you're now working for something that is tuned into something so much greater than this like perception of gain or loss, you know? And that's like, when you're to that and you're connected to that, like, you can't lose, you know? So then when we become fearless and when the stuff comes up, the ego that's going to try to trick you into saying, you got to make this happen. This isn't the right way. Like, trust your heart, follow your gut, like follow what feels right, not what the mind says should work or shouldn't work. Yeah, definitely. Everything you said is so beautiful. It's so connected to that energy too, of that Venus in Capricorn. And, you know, Venus coming in conjunction at the end of the month with Saturn and with Pluto and with the South, like, those aren't easy transits. Those aren't things that feel uplifting in the moment. It might be a perceived loss. It might be a perceived kind of like something being withheld from you, or something not working out, or there's like some sort of like death. But the truth is that in that, there's something hidden. There's always a gem, a gift that comes in an unexpected way. It's like a backdoor kind of thing. And so sometimes experiences give us what we need for future experiences, you know, and sometimes that's hard and sometimes that's easy. But like you said, getting really connected, and having the commitment to see things through, like participating with your best self, regardless of what anyone else is doing, or projecting or criticizing. It's like, follow what is your true north.
That's beautiful. I love it. This is an exciting month. I feel I feel the energy. And I'm looking outside and the snow is just going, which is pushing everything forward. I'm like, interesting. It just feels like things are flowing. And even when they're not, that's also a sign. Like everything points back to alignment, just like what you started out with. When things aren't flowing, that's pointing us back to alignment. How can we get back again and again? Oh boy, it's beautiful. I love astrology so much. You share it in a way that's so nice and easy to understand, and it makes so much sense for our practical life as well,
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that just helps me and supports me, and so I love sharing it with everyone. It helps, if it doesn't help, if these things don't help, then obviously don't listen to them. But I think, yeah, I just, and always reminding ourselves that if we do step out of alignment, if we do catch ourselves out of flow, if we do find ourselves there, the quicker that we're able to just recognize that without judgment, without beating ourselves up, without coming up with some story and like holding ourselves in contempt. It's like, let's not do that. Like this month is like pick yourself up, keep going, learn from it, apply it, and like have fun. Like you said, the playful energy, the joy of it. It's like experiment, try things out, get in action, lean on support, ask people for help, write it, like let it be fun. Like you said, I love that.
So beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. Is there anything else that we need to know before we wrap this up?
I think we're pretty set. I think that's, it's just like keep following where you're going, keep taking action, keep expressing your truth, with Mercury moving fast and approaching that shadow phase, making sure that you're really like communicating everything you need to communicate, that you're saying what's authentic for you, and keeping that flow open. Keep the flow going, keep it open. Participation is so vital. And I do want to just do a little plug, a shameless plug, that I'm super excited to share that I am creating a course. It's on shadow work. It's healing methods for integrating the darkness. And it's a series that's part of a much bigger series. It's called the Lightworker School. And it's through the astrologer, the Leo King, David Palmer. He's doing this Lightworker School that's coming out in March. And there's a team of 5 of us. And so there's tarot card reading, human design specialist. He's going to go over like business, and then there's nutrition and health and wholeness. So, and then I'm doing the shadow work. So there's all these opportunities for people to learn, and I'm so stoked about it. So you can check it out on highvibetv.com. You can do pre-registration. It's open now. And
I'll put a link below, so make sure you send that to me. And then, and you do your astrology readings. I mean, I love that. It's all about sharing, sharing what we know. We could do a podcast about shadow work because I love it. And it helps people so much. It's helped me like really facing the shadow. It's so important. It is vital. Without facing your shadow, you cannot access your light.
Right. And I think
with lighter without facing your dark shadow. Sorry.
I mean, I think that's where you and I always have had this like authentic connection together, because we are both healers and light workers that are so, we just have the gift of being able to sit with darkness. Like it's our gift to be able to feel the full spectrum of everything. And so really my like risk this month, I guess, is to really step into showing up for that and like sharing that with people, because it makes a difference when we're doing this work. We get to be more real. We get to be more integrated and whole and authentic when we're talking from a place of actually doing the work ourselves and doing the full healing, not just
magical stuff. I mean, I love them. I'm a magical Google woman, but I get down and dirty, and I can crawl down to the shadows and the underworld as well. And I think, it is a gift. So I'd love to talk to you about that next time. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited about your course. That is so awesome. And I'll put the link below. So you guys, if you guys have any questions, reach out to Sarah or I. We're here for you. And, Sarah can do a reading for you. If you want some questions for March, before we do March, go ahead and DM us. So much love. Mwah. Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on.
Yay.
Happy February.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Radha.
Bye.